So if you were to find out that top staffers in the Trump campaign weren't necessarily being paid perfectly equal between different racial groups, you might not be that shocked by that. But what if I were to tell you that in addition, it isn't necessarily a perfect picture on the Biden side either? Well, joining us now to break down some really amazing reporting in this area, senior Washington correspondent for Business Insider, Dave Leventhal joins us once again on the show. Dave, welcome back.
Hey, good to be with you, John.
Good to have you here, especially considering how busy you've been. You've got a lot of stories that have been coming out recently. So tell me a little bit about this investigation that you did.
Well, so often we talk about in the corporate world and in different industries, different businesses. Well, are people represented at the top ranks of those corporations or those industries? And is it reflective of America in general? And so we wanted to take that to the political world. And so we analyzed the top salaries of both the Trump presidential campaign and the Biden presidential campaign. And as you alluded to, the Trump campaign, when you look at the top 20 salaries, you crunch the numbers, you do the data, it's a pretty white picture. 16, perhaps 17 people on the Trump campaign are white when it comes to their top 20 earners. On the Biden campaign, though, the top 5 members of the Biden campaign in terms of their pay are also white, although in general, the picture is much more diverse on the Biden side than it is the Trump side.
It is. And so what I would like to some context that would help me to understand this is, and I know that you can't necessarily do the same sort of analysis for so many past campaigns, the information might not even exist, but do we have reason to believe that either of them might be better or worse than on average, or even in comparison to the Clinton and Trump campaigns back in 2016?
Yeah, so we looked at the 2016 campaign, and it was for the Trump campaign largely the same, a little bit different personnel, different people. But when it came to those top earners, it was also a pretty white campaign in 2016 versus in 2020. Hillary Clinton had a kind of a similar diversity, both in terms of gender and also in racial and ethnic makeup to the Biden campaign. But in both cases, still you have a campaign that when it comes to the people who are really in the upper echelon of the campaign, there's a lot of people who are white. That's no commentary on whether that's good or it's bad. It's just simply the reality of what it is. And I talked to some academics and some people who study racial issues and gender issues. And basically what they told me is that there's still a long way to go in politics. And when it comes to the people who are really at the spear's edge or the tip of the spear for any political campaign, including Democratic campaigns, that you're not going to necessarily have in that upper echelon a campaign that looks like America writ large.
Interesting. Although hypothetically, were you to dig a little bit deeper, you might see trends that could imply that future campaigns might. I don't know if maybe there might be evidence of that came up during your investigation.
Absolutely, and especially in the Biden campaign, when you go beyond the top earners and you go to the next 20 and the 20 below that in terms of the people making the money, then you find a lot of people of color. You find many women on the Biden campaign, and in fact, it's a very, very equal campaign when you look at it gender. And so, yeah, if that's an area that is of concern to you, if you care about there being good representation on a campaign that you want to support, then the Biden campaign is giving you a little bit more of that than the Trump campaign at this point.
Is there any clear trend in terms of overall level of pay for the same sorts of jobs between these two campaigns? Are the staffers of one of the campaigns generally making more?
So we looked at Federal Election Commission data to do this analysis, and one stumbling block here is that the Trump campaign and the Biden campaign actually report their numbers differently. So it was difficult to compare apples and oranges. It seems after without getting into all the details, that roughly everyone in that top 20 is making some pretty good coin, around $200,000 or more. And so nobody's going poor if they're working at the top of the Biden or the Trump campaign. But it is notable to note that on the Biden campaign side, there are a lot of women represented. And in fact, in the top 20 of the Biden campaign, 20 earners, that there are more women than there are men. Not the case for the Trump campaign, although it's about 12-8. One interesting note, John, is that there are no East Asians, people of East Asian descent who are in the top 20 of either campaign. That speaks to a political truth of sorts that is a bit of an open secret in politics, that a lot of Asian Americans, especially East Asian Americans, are not well represented in politics. Andrew Yang used to bring this up from time to time too, and it's very much the truth when you do this type of analysis to really bore down into who is on these campaigns.
Interesting.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.